This lesson is going to be on different types of pairs of angles. First type of pair of angles we have are complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are similar, but they're two angles that add to 180 degrees. Adjacent angles are angles that share a ray or angles that are next to each other. And vertical angles are angles that are opposite each other. Vertical angles are also congruent to each other, which means they are equal to each other. In this diagram, we're going to talk about all of those pairs. The first pair I'm going to talk about is complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90 degrees. To have 90 degrees, I have to have this box. So I have my box on this side, and that means it's also going to be on this side because it forms 180 degrees. So here's my right angle. So my two complementary angles are angle BOC and angle COD. Those two angles together form 90 degrees. The next type of angle are supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are two angles that form 180 degrees or form a straight line. So here's a straight line. So I can say that angle AOB and angle BOD form a straight line. I also have another straight line here, and I can say that angle EOD and angle COD are supplementary because they form that straight line. And even a third straight line back to this first one, but now we could look at the bottom part. So we could say angle AOE and angle EOD also form a straight line. Vertical angles are angles that are opposite to each other, meaning their backs are touching. So a pair of vertical angles would be angle COD, which is this angle, and angle AOE, which would be this angle. So those two angles would be vertical because they're opposite to each other. And lastly, a pair of adjacent angles. Adjacent just means two angles that are next to each other. So one example would be angle BOC and angle COD. So BOC and COD are adjacent. If angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, and the measure of angle 1 is 32, what's the measure of angle 2? So supplementary means that the two angles have to add to 180 degrees. So that means the measure of angle 1, which is 32, plus the measure of angle 2 has to equal 180 degrees. So I would just subtract 32 from 180, and I would get that the measure of angle 2, that's what M angle 2 stands for, would be 180 minus 32, which is 148. Find the value of x in each diagram. Since we have a right angle here, I know these two angles are complementary, so that means I have to add to 90 degrees. And since I already have 45, I'm missing 45 degrees for my other angle. These two angles are supplementary, so they add up to 180 degrees. So 180 minus 76 would give me 104. These two angles are also supplementary because they form a straight line. So 180 minus 100 is 80 degrees. And the last one, since I have a box, I know that this is a right angle. So I have to add to 90 degrees. So 90 minus 72 is 18.